Here.
Sounds good.
All right. Hey, Cedar Rapids. Tim Nash with Skogman Realty here. I am here with today. We're at the Flying Weenie. Got a hot dog here.
Oh yeah.
All very excited, and we're at the Flying Weenie because I'm with two very interesting individuals that are about to take on a very important mission, and I just think I think today I'm here with John Ockenfels and Peter Tien. And you know what? I'm just going to let them tell us a little bit about what they're going to be doing here. And when you guys take off?
We take off out of the Cedar Rapids Airport on March 24th on a trip around the world in a single engine airplane. That's what people are just amazed about.
Yes. And so in about a month, they're going to be taking off in a single engine airplane, and they're going to fly around the world. And what's the mission?
The mission is a flight to end polio.
Our
goal is to raise money to help eradicate polio in the world. All the money will go to charity, to the Rotary International Foundation, who has a Polio Plus program. Mm-hmm. And for 35 years, Rotary has been working hard around the world to eradicate polio. And we're going to raise money to help them do it. And what's even more exciting is because we're with Rotary, we're raising money to eradicate polio. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation will match every dollar we raise. The Gates Foundation will give $2.
That's awesome.
So the power of giving just triples. It's
so
amazing.
for $1 you raise, that's $2 additional dollars.
Somebody just gave us $100 yesterday. That immediately turned to $300. Somebody gave us $10,000 a month ago, and that became $30,000.
So I mean, I think when you actually think about two guys in a single engine plane flying around the world, and you're just kind of saying, well, so what? Not so what, because we'll find out how that task in itself is something to accomplish. But they're raising money, and they're raising significant funds to help eradicate polio from the globe. And as Peter said, this is something that Rotary's been working towards for a very, very long time. So
to put this in perspective, we're going to make 29 stops in 17 different countries along the way. We're going to stay a couple days in most of those countries. Okay, we're not just making a mad dash to go around. We're going to take some time, see some cities, but that's our part of the trip. Peter and I are paying 100% of the cost for this trip.
Yep.
And so 100% of the donations, every dime of the donation goes to the Rotary Foundation. And so we just like to be very clear on that, because we had somebody stand up at one of the question and answer periods and said, well, that's a pretty expensive trip, isn't it? I mean, you're going to go around the world, and then you're going to give this money, whatever you give to get to polio.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to give, what, 20% to polio? We're like, no, 100%.
Yep.
And that 100%, we're hoping to raise $1 million. And some people say that's too low of a sum. Right? With all, as we're traveling around the world, we're hoping Rotarians are generous, but we're hoping a lot of, people who aren't Rotarians want to make a difference, because there's a lot of history of polio in this country. Every day, somebody will stop us. Just an hour and a half ago, somebody told me about their husband had polio as a child and still has challenges with it. And I've known the husband all my life. Never knew his issues were related to polio. So there's a lot of polio history and stories in the lives of families in the United States and around the world.
Yep. And I mean, even around the world, I think the thing that a lot of folks think, especially if you've been in Rotary, because that's where I'm, as a Rotarian, I've learned more about polio than I ever probably thought I would outside of being a Rotarian. But it affects a lot of children primarily in third world countries and countries that are less developed.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you that in the United States, we don't see it. So the problem is the out of sight, out of mind scenario.
Right.
When you get into other countries, not just third world countries, but when you get into other countries, you see a lot of handicapped people trying to get around on their hands and knees or whatever, polio survivors. Okay.
Yeah.
Especially, I spent a few weeks in India a while ago, and it was rampant in India until 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Okay. There's only 2 countries left in the world today with endemic polio. That's Pakistan and Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And yet we have several hundred cases last year in those 2 countries.
Yeah.
So it's still there. What we know is that polio is only one airplane ride away. And the prime evidence of that is you look at the world today, is the coronavirus. Look at how scared we are today of the coronavirus. Now take yourself back to 1953 or 1955, and you've got all these young kids that are coming down with polio in exactly the same way. They're shutting down schools, shutting down the parks, everybody was staying home. Same reaction we're seeing to coronavirus in many countries today.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you have it unchecked, and it can go across borders, airplane to airplane.
And I think that's a really important point that you make is if it goes unchecked, because like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we were down to like single digits.
Yeah.
We were down to like but unchecked, now we're up in the hundreds because of it hasn't been policed and it hasn't been completely
Because of
eradicated.
people that are anti-vaccinators in Pakistan and Afghanistan, it's turned into a religious issue, and they are screaming mad. And in fact, in both countries, they're actually assassinating the vaccinators in some cases. So when we see people go out and put drops in kids' mouths, or they give the vaccine, a lot of these people that are doing this are literally taking their lives in their hands to get those 2 drops to those kids.
Yeah.
And it's I look at the numbers, and I've been planning this trip for over a year and a half. When I started planning this trip, Pakistan had 20 cases of new cases of polio. Now they're reporting over 200.
Wow.
That's just in the short time period that we've been planning.
Right.
So it's growing.
Last year,
And it can come here, it can spread everywhere, unless we eradicate it once and for all. And we can do that.
and they're starting to turn the corner on that again.
Yeah.
They're working it, but it's going to take a couple of years to get it down to 0. And then after the rate is 0 for 3 years, then it'll be certified polio free.
Wow.
So our goal is to get to 0, keep it 0 for 3 years. That's important because Nigeria got to 0.
Yeah.
And 2 years later, they had a breakout of polio because they didn't keep vaccinating the kids. They lost the ball.
Gotcha.
Well, they had polio. They were back on the list for another 3 years. They just came off that list. They're just now being certified polio free again. But that's to ensure that the virus is gone.
Wow.
Okay? And they have to keep vaccinating.
Wow. Yeah.
We still vaccinate in the United States. We still vaccinate millions and millions of kids around the world every year, even in the countries that are polio free.
Wow. So now, aside from the polio piece, which is really that's the main push behind this trip, let's talk a little bit about the trip itself. So how many folks have accomplished this, and then how many surviving?
Well, it's an amazing number. When you look at who's alive in the world today, like there's 7.4 billion people, 4,000 people have climbed Mount Everest.
Right.
500 people have been in outer space. That's just in the people alive today.
Right.
When you look at the last 100+ years of aviation, only 700 pilots have achieved what we're setting out to do in a few weeks.
Yep.
And only less than 300, I think the number's closer to 265 pilots are alive in the world that have achieved what John and I are setting out to do March 24th. So it's an extremely rare event. It's something that it'll be officially documented on the World Aeronautical Federation that will track where we're at and track that we accomplish this. Because there's documented evidence that only 700 have ever tried and accomplished this shit.
We actually have to get signatures in the logbook as we go around.
Yeah. Well, and I think some people say, well, so what? You take off, you land. You take off, you land. You take off, you land. But I heard in your presentation all the coordination you're having to do with individual nations, and there's politics involved, and there's a lot of security involved, and there's a lot of risk because they're flying over two very large oceans, the Atlantic, well, the Pacific would be going kind of over the Bering Strait or kind of
Right.
up north, but that Atlantic, that's going to be a very long trip.
70% of the trip over water.
Yeah. So think about that.
I mean, we go from here up to Bangor, Maine, the first day, and then up to St. John's, Newfoundland.
Yeah.
And then it's a 10-hour flight from St. John's, Newfoundland to the Azores.
Yeah.
And there's no land underneath you.
Yeah.
It is the North Atlantic Ocean. And you look at the risk. You have no alternatives. There's no landing. So your alternative is to land in the water. If you go out in July and August in Lake Michigan, out in the middle of Lake Michigan, you fall off a sailboat and you don't have a life vest, you will die due to thermal hypothermia
Yeah.
in 20 minutes.
It's cold water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
now
that's
you're
cold
talking
water.
the
Now
North
you're in the- yeah,
Atlantic,
in the North
which is a
Atlantic.
whole lot, dangerous, a whole lot colder.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we have to wear immersion suits. So Collins Aerospace has donated us a 5-man life raft. We'll have satellite phones. We'll have personal locator beacons on us that you'll be able to actually follow us when we're flying.
Yeah.
You go to our website, Flight to End Polio, and you'll be able to track us within 5 minutes of where we're at.
I'll put that link in the feed when I post this on Facebook. Yeah.
And so we have to, if we go down in the water, wherever it's at, we have to keep the plane intact.
Yep.
We can't have broken arms and legs because of the impact.
Yep.
We'll have our immersion suits on before we take off because we don't have room in the plane to put them on. Then we have to get out of the plane, get the life raft inflated, and get inside the life raft before the plane sinks within 10 minutes.
Wow.
So an emergency suit protects us specifically from cold temperatures in the water.
Sure.
It really extends that few minutes to hours and hours.
Yeah.
And so you have time to safely get into the life raft.
Right.
Once you're in the life raft out of the water, you've got days and days
Yeah.
that you're protected.
So you think of the Mediterranean might be warmer, probably
Right.
it's not going to be
Sure.
any warmer than Lake Michigan. You've got
Yeah.
the Persian Gulf, and you talk about the dangerous areas. We're flying right along the western border of Iraq and Iran, going to the United Arab Emirates and crossing over the Strait of Hormuz where there's capturing the oil tankers
Yeah.
into places like Karachi, Nagpur, Bangladesh, and then down to Bangkok, Singapore, and head back north into Malaysia. The area that we're landing at in Malaysia is heavily influenced by radical Islamic terrorists, but we need the land because we need the fuel
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Then it's up to the Philippines and Japan and 3 stops in Russia. Well, those 3 stops in Russia, the second and third stop are deep into what we know as Siberia.
Oh, man.
And when I was a young kid, you always heard about Stalin exiling, people to the depths of Siberia. And actually Magadan is the entryway of those imprisonments of those prisoners and those civilians. There's camps, remnants still up there where hundreds of thousands of people die by infections and disease being transmitted between the prison environments, and tens of thousands that were murdered. And so our last 2 stops is through there before we make it over to Bering Strait to Nome, Alaska.
Back to
By the way, I
Alaska.
checked the weather
Yeah.
in beautiful downtown Magadan a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was 54 degrees, below zero.
Oh, jeez.
And 50-mile-an-hour
Yeah,
winds.
50 mile an hour winds,
Oh,
yeah.
that winds, wonderful.
So,
Well, you guys,
It'll be about freezing when we
you
go.
guys got your work cut out for you. And I know you're planning this out, but you do have an event coming up on March 7th. It's gonna be a pancake breakfast. Can you give me some details on that?
Pancake Breakfast is being hosted by the Eastern Iowa Airport at Cedar Rapids. If you come out that day, it's from 7:30 to 11 o'clock on the 7th, which is a Saturday. It's called a fly-in, drive-in breakfast, so hopefully we'll have a lot of airplanes flying in, a lot of cars driving in, and you'll be able to go out and look at the airplanes. Our airplane will be there with all the equipment and all. You'll be able to come up and talk to John and I, see our plane, how it's decked out to make the big trip. I think adults are $10 and children are $5, but 100% of the money that people pay for breakfast goes to Flight to End Polio. The Eastern Iowa Airport's picking up the entire tab. Your breakfast fee is going to help eradicate polio in the world. So we encourage people to come out, meet John and I. We'll show you what we're taking with us and how small the plane is. And we want you to be part of our flight. So follow us on Flight to End Polio, our website. Follow us on Facebook, Flight to End Polio, and be sure to share and like us. And when we're flying, we'll be doing blogs up on our website and Facebook. We'll be doing videos, posting of where we're at and what we're doing. We want this to be your flight as much as us.
Awesome.
And we can make a difference and eradicate polio once and for all from the world.
Perfect. John, you got anything else?
Sure. One of the things we're asking everybody to do is go to our website and check it out. There's a tremendous amount of information on there. We're going to tell you how to follow us. It's on the website. There's links you can download that'll just put it on your app. You can just do it. And the other thing is, if you've had polio, if you know somebody's had polio's invaded your life somewhere along the way. We have a section there. We'd like you to tell us the story of how that's affected you. We're going to take that information with us around the world, and we're going to share that with other people. You can do this with your name. You can do it anonymously, but we want to take your story forward so that everybody understands what's really happening in the background. It's time for those stories to come out of the background, come out of the shadows. Let's share them so everybody knows what's going on.
Awesome. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you coming
Thank
on. Flight to End Polio. Pancake Breakfast is on March 7th at the Eastern Iowa Airport. It sounds like, yeah, I know it's something my son would absolutely love to check out. So it sounds like it'd be a great thing to take the kids to. I will put as much information as I can in the feed, the website, and how to track these guys. Come down to the Flying Weenie and grab a hot dog because they're awesome down here. This place has been around for a very long time and for good reason. It's really, really good. Also, final thing, if you're looking to buy a house or looking to sell your current home and you need a good realtor, reach out to me and we'll have lunch. All right. Thanks so much, Cedar Rapids. Thank you, gentlemen. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, appreciate it.